happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Oh my God, I can't believe it's 2024. It was just like, I think we were just doing this a year ago, and now it's a new year. It's so unbelievable. It's
It flew
incredible.
by. I don't know about you, but 2023, I feel like.
Eh,
Where did it
That's
go?
why kicking it off today becomes so important so that we start like strong, right, and energized from the get-go.
Yes.
But really, and I love to have this conversation with you today because it is all about, yes, starting strong and fast, but remembering to take a pause to know where we're going, right? And right before we had our conversation, we were coming in, you were just mentioning that how important it is to really take that pause and to take care of us ourselves, because once we get into that roller coaster, that's it, like it's
Yeah.
not going to stop.
Yeah.
So tell us more
Yeah.
about that.
100%. I think, I work with a lot of women, especially Latina women who are in the professional space. And so many times I've come across women who are just do not give themselves grace at all, right? And like we are our own worst and harshest critics. And it's okay to have high expectations of yourself and set standards for yourself, but it's also okay to realize that you're human and show yourself grace and rest, right? Like part of the human experience. I know with all this AI and automation and everything getting faster and quicker, more efficient, we feel like we also have to keep up with that. And we're forgetting that rest is actually, and I learned this the other day because I listen to a lot of podcasts, rest is actually short for restoration, right? Like you actually need to rest to restore and rejuvenate and come back to yourself. Because if not, you are going to be running on empty and you're going to burn out. You're going to have health problems. You're going to feel depressed. Like all of these symptoms that come up from not giving yourself some grace and actually prioritizing rest.
Yes, you bring up such important points. And hi, Joanna. Hi, Asleen. Hi, Miriam. And hi, everybody who's watching. Thank you so much
Bienvenidos.
for bienvenida. Sí, thank you for being here. And it's interesting that you mentioned about the rest and the restoration, because I feel like I'm always on. And I feel like I get energized by being always on. But the other day, I was reading somewhere about the 6 minute breaks. Have you heard about the 6 minute breaks?
I actually have heard about it. Like every hour, you're supposed to take 6 minutes, right?
6 minutes, but
Yeah.
actually sometimes I had the idea of, hi Drea, so many times I thought that in order to get a break you needed like long periods of time, and therefore there's the belief, or at least I had the belief, right, that I didn't have time,
Mhm.
because to get a good break you needed half an hour or something like that. But
Yeah.
actually, you only need 6 minutes. You just need 6 minutes consistently throughout the day,
Yeah.
and that's good enough to be able to prioritize. Obviously, if you get more, then that's better,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
100%. I
six
heard a
minutes
great
is better than nothing.
So I heard a great hack actually specifically dealing with that. So a lot of times, you may not need the full 30 minutes to have a meeting. Like who set the standard that we need to have 30-minute meetings or 60-minute meetings? Like this, we can set our own standards, right? And so what a lot of specialists are saying around taking breaks specifically is actually ending your meeting 5 minutes early. So making it a 25-minute meeting instead. And during that 5-minute break, like going for a walk, or even if it's something like looking outside your window at the sun and drinking your glass of coffee, or whatever it is that gives you a little bit of joy, like do it. Because I guarantee you, if you do not, you're going to feel it later on in the day when you're drained or exhausted or feeling depressed or anxious or whatever those kind of negative feelings that arise when we don't take care of ourselves.
Yep, absolutely. And hi, Erica. Hi, everybody that's joining. It's so good to see everybody again. I needed my community.
Ooh, this
The
is awesome.
holidays were nice, but having the community is always.
Yeah.
Um, so one of the things that you do as a coach, I know, because you and I have chatted a lot, is about purpose, right? And the importance of doing things from a professional perspective and also a personal one that align with our purpose. Because as we think about these energizing moments of the day, sometimes doing things that are not aligned with our purpose actually drain us because we're just doing things.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how many of us ended up in a hamster wheel because we didn't take the moment to pause and recognize, like, am I here because I want to, or am I here because I have to?
Yeah.
So as we kick off the year, like, what do you talk with your clients? What do you see as, like, important questions that we need to ask ourselves to make the most out of this year?
Yeah. No, I love that. I think purpose is a very deep, I won't say term here. I think every single person has their own definition of what purpose means for them and how it looks for them. For some people, it shows up professionally, right? Some people work in their purpose. I think I'll share with for myself. Before I became a coach, I actually used to lead a women's group in Boston, where we would have professional development trainings and workshops to really help empower and uplift and upskill women of color. And that doing that work is what really lit me up to understand that my purpose is actually empowering women no matter where I go, no matter how I do it. It's always empowering women, and I felt that intrinsically when I was doing that work and feeling so aligned with it, and I felt so alive and energized. And I was not paid for that work, by the way. That's how I knew I loved it, right? So one thing that I actually tell my clients, first and foremost, I feel like so many women, we were talking about this before, Ileana. I feel like so many women, especially women of color, because we are very marginalized in a lot of spaces, we lose touch with our own intuition, right? We lose touch with ourselves and like what really matters to us because everyone else is telling us this is what matters. This is what should matter. This is what you should be doing. This is what your family wants for you. This is what your kids want from you. This is what your husband wants. This is what your boss wants, right? All these voices, these external voices that we lose track and lose touch with our own internal voice, our intuition. And so one thing I invite my clients to do is to do a few activities to get in touch with your inner leader, is what I call it. Each one of us has a saboteur and an inner leader. And the saboteur is that little voice that every single one of us has. It's totally normal. That goes in the back of your head that's maybe saying, oh, that's too difficult. Or you shouldn't take that risk. Or are you sure you're good enough for that? That's that little saboteur voice. But it's how do we get in touch with that other voice that we have that's saying, you know what, that's difficult, but you can do it. That's going to be hard, but we can take it one step at a time every single day, right? It's how do we get back in touch with that?
I love that. And I wrote down three things that you talked about that I think are really important that I want to reinforce. One is doing all the things that we could do all day long without getting paid and feeling energized. That'll give you a hint to
Mhm.
the things that are aligned with your values, with your purpose, right? Because sometimes I know that to me, it took me a long time to figure out what was my purpose.
Mhm.
And many of us sometimes are still lost in trying to figure out what that is. But one of the things is to look back and see, okay, what can I do all day long and just do it with a smile on my face? And it doesn't really matter because that can help us then understand what's behind that motivation, what's behind that, that passion, right?
Yep.
So that's important. And then the other thing, and I think a lot of us Latinas and just women in general, and I'm not going to, it's not everybody, but I keep hearing it again and again, is we keep putting others first, right? It's in our nurture,
Oh
it's in
my
our
God.
nature because we're
We're
nurturers,
socialized. Yeah, we're also
right?
socialized that way, right? Like,
Exactly, exactly. But one of the things that somebody told me at the end of last year was, how about we do 2024 the year of us? And
mm,
it's not because it's a selfish, position. It's because if we start thinking about us, then we'll be more energized so that we can then give to others and nurture others. So
Yeah.
it is a fine balance of trying to figure out, when do I pause and do things for me, and when do I continue with others.
Yeah.
But it is important that we create that space, going back to the 6 minutes or the 10 minutes or the 30 minutes, whatever it is, that we do provide ourselves with that time for us,
I
right?
love
So we
it.
can restore.
I love it. I love it. I always tell my clients, like, how can you pour from an empty cup, right? Like, how can you give if you haven't been giving to yourself? And I also tell a lot of my clients, or just women in general, I'm like, if you do not set boundaries, especially in the workplace, right? If you don't set those boundaries, those little breaks that you need, maybe you need to get away from the computer for an hour for lunch, and honor that. Like, maybe your body is craving that. Maybe your eyes start burning, or you get really anxious, or your breathing is off, or something like that. That's your body telling you, hey, pay attention to me, take care of me, right? And
Yeah.
so I actually ask my clients, instead of, what goals do you want to accomplish this year? I ask, how do you want to feel this year? And I love that question.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you want to feel this year? And I love the hashtag restore. We need to make that sort of
I love that
a
word.
cry, right? Like something to do. Now, one of the things, we start the year with all of these intentions, with all of these goals, with all of these, thoughts of how do you want to feel. But then something happens and we go back to the hamster wheel, right? And then a
Mhm.
lot of the things that I see happen is the fear of, well, one, the lack of self-confidence, and then the fear of being wrong,
Mhm.
right? I want to change the world. I want to get the new job. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then uh, it's like breaks and move back. How do you sort of work with your clients, around that fear, around gaining that self confidence, so that that traction that we begin, we continue, and it doesn't get like halted around February.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, no career path, no path in life is linear. There's no, this is the way life goes and it's great. No, life and career and pretty much anything that you do is going to be, lots of bumps and bruises and learning along the way. And maybe it'll go great for a bit and you get laid off and you're back. And then you start your business and it's really, you know, difficult at first, but then it shoots up and goes great, right? Like, so everything is temporary. So one thing that I talk about with my clients specifically is having them define what confidence even means to them. Every single person has their own definition of what confidence is. And what I like to do too is, show examples of quote unquote confident women. And I ask them, I'm like, what makes this person confident? And the responses I get are really interesting. So I'll give an example. I'll give a Latina example. So let's say Alexandria Cortez, right? I love her. She's super confident, right? And I ask people what makes her confident, and they're like, well, she is hardworking and she speaks up for herself, and she is very eloquent when she speaks, and she has conviction, believes in herself, right? All of these things. And so I ask, how can you show up that way, right? Even if it means sometimes, and I know this might be like controversial, but even if it means faking it for a bit, like telling yourself, manifesting, I am hardworking, I am fierce, I am outspoken, like telling that to yourself, even if maybe you don't 100% believe it yet. Because trust me, if you say it enough to yourself subconsciously, you'll start believing it. And then you'll start showing up as that person. And then you'll believe, hey, yeah, if something fails, maybe I set my mind on something, it didn't go the way that I wanted. Well, I'm going to try it this way now because I still want that. Instead of, oh, I didn't get what I wanted, so I'm done. And I'm never going to try it again, right? It's really about belief in self and that you can get through anything that life throws at you, because life is going to life, right, Ileana? Life is going to life. I tell people, someone may pass away, we get a divorce, so many things happen in life that are unpredictable, out of our control. And the only thing you can control in this life is you. That's it. Right? So getting to that place with my clients, like understanding that I actually do have control over myself, my thoughts, how I talk to myself, how I talk to other people, how I react, how I move in the world. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, no, I think it's very important, the control piece, because so many things are out of our control, and we tend to unconsciously keep focusing on that, right? And then that adds up to what you were saying, the lack of self-confidence, because all of these inner critic kind of situations that happen in our minds, right? But when we refocus and reconnect with the things that we are in control, which are our emotions, just like doing the next thing. I normally recommend like write in a post-it, like what are the two things, three things at the most that you can do now, right now. Right, don't worry about the next week, the next month, the next year. Like when you're in that state of everything a panic, because sometimes it's almost like you're in panic mode.
Yeah.
It's take that pause and write down, because it needs to be physical. It can't be in our heads, right? Because in our heads things get amplified.
Yep.
But writing down and saying, okay, at least now what's in my control is to be able to blah 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 and blah blah, and that'll help us regain that control, and therefore that self-confidence and belief, and okay, we we don't got everything, but we at
Yeah.
least got something to be able to start moving forward again,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think the other thing important, and we were just chatting before we got on air, is the community, right? A lot of things we feel that we need to do on our own because
Mm.
we we're told that we're supposed to be superwoman and do all of these things, but the reality is we can lean on others. It's
Yeah.
okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out. It's okay, and that's what we're doing in United Latinas,
Yeah.
right? Building this community of support and of service, because we've all been there at one point in time.
Can I add something to that, Elena?
Yes.
I actually, it's funny enough, there's this awesome podcast episode. I don't know if you ever watch Code Switch. It's a great podcast, NPR's Code Switch. They have an episode called Real Self Care. Highly recommend for anyone to check it out, listen to it. It's great. But basically, I forgot the psychologist's name, but she was saying that actual real self care is community care. It's not self-care. That's a very westernized concept of like having to heal self by yourself as you're alone, right? In isolation, when we are actually social creatures by nature. I mean, back in the day before technology and everything, like if you didn't have a community, you were dead. Like you would die, right? Like you literally would not be able to survive alone, right? And so, yeah, we've evolved and blah, blah, blah. We have internet, AI, whatever. We still are human, right? Meaning we still need community to survive. And when we don't have it, and I think that's what we're seeing a lot now in this day and age of everybody being remote and everybody not seeing each other and everyone kind of being isolated. There's so much, I'm sure you've seen it. There's a huge uptick in mental health um, problems, right? In the country, all over the world. People are feeling isolated. And actually, they said the number one mental health problem in the US right now is actually not depression, it's isolation, it's loneliness. It's actually the number one mental health problem in the country right now is loneliness. And so that just proves like people need community. Um, that's the real care, right? Like it's such a good podcast episode because she talks about, we talk about bubble baths and Reiki and all these things that people are doing, yoga and all this stuff, which is great. And I'm not saying anything bad about those things. However, real self care, real community care is having access to childcare, is having enough money in your bank account so that you don't have to work three jobs and you can rest. It's about access to healthcare that is affordable, right? Like all of these different things that would make us all collectively right better. So yeah.
I think that's critically important, and it's important that we understand, to your point, like that sense of community. Because I know that when I left my job back in 2018, I realized I did not have a community. I had people that I knew that were
Mhm.
part of my job, right? But once that went away, I was like,
Wait,
right? And many of
all
us,
alone swimming.
exactly, swimming in this, and many of us are first generation, right? Like our families or our friends are not necessarily in this country, right? And that makes it very hard. So building this sense of community, you're absolutely right. That has to be on our goals this year to continue to expand and build.
Yeah.
So, as always, we have great conversation, but we are literally towards the end of this. Any like closing remarks, call to actions so that we can like kickstart the year?
Yeah. Well, first, I would like to say to everyone in the space, you made it. You are here. You are alive. Be grateful for all the things that you do have instead of thinking about all of the things that you don't have. So that's the first thing I would say is try to approach your day. And I actually like to start with a gratitude meditation in the morning to just put myself in a good mindset for the day. So that's the first thing I would say is think of a morning routine. That's a really crucial part of your day. That's how you start your day, right? So think of a morning routine that you can do, even if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever that is, that will get you in a good headspace, a good mindset to start your day. The other thing I would say, I actually do this with my clients, is schedule in your self care time into your calendar. Actually, schedule it in. So if you know after 3 hours, I go nuts sitting at my desk, right? Or my legs go numb, or like, I don't know, whatever that happens, right? Start noticing those things and realize, hey, you know what? You could do the 6 minute rule. Every hour, I'm going to take a little walk for 5 minutes. Or you could do, hey, for lunch, I'm going to get away from my computer. I'm going to tell people I'm not online at this time and go outside to my yoga class or whatever that is, right? But schedule that in first and then schedule the rest of your day around it. Because if you do not, your work will take over everything, right? And your managers or whoever does not care, right? So you got to set boundaries. And then the last thing I would say is think about how do you want to feel this year? Um, do you want to feel rested? Do you want to feel balanced? What does that mean? Okay, if you do want to be balanced, what does that look like? Right. So think about getting in touch with your body. And then, yeah, I would say, and then lastly, reach out to your people and community for support. You don't have to do it alone. Every client I've worked with, for the most part, are referrals or people who have seen me speak at events and they reach out to me and it shows me so much of their commitment to change, that they reach out and ask for support. Like that's huge because it's really, really hard for us, especially as women of color, especially as Latina women, to ask for help, right? So it's don't be ashamed of it. We're not meant to do this alone. So I'll
No,
leave it there.
no. Absolutely. And with that, then I'm going to invite everybody that's watching to join us. We have a ton of events slated for this year. You can already find some of our events. We're kicking off the year with our Latina Leadership Meeting on the 17th. Sign up for that one. That's where you are going to learn about this community even more. We're going to have some fascinating and very energizing exercises of coming together. It's a community of support as well, so you can come and ask for help there and feel comfortable that people are going to help you, because that's what it's all about, right? And how do we build that leadership within all of us? We also have our Latina Speaker Circle. If you want to become a speaker or you are a speaker and want to enhance those speaking skills, you can become a part of the Latina Speakers Club, and you benefit from the circles. That's happening on the 18th. That's every month. The 18th is this year. And then we have our first workshop of the year, which continues with this self-care topic, right? We have Karina Mueller, who's an extraordinary expert on well-being, and she's going to teach us all these like quick things to build our self-care toolbox. And that's happening on the 24th. And then for those of you that are starting your business or want to grow your business, we have our Design an Effective Business Growth Model workshop. And we're going to continue to have all of these business building programs and workshops throughout the year, kicking it off in February 6th. And then we have our first in-person event of the year in Miami. That's happening on the 23rd. And we have several others. We have one in Jacksonville. We have one in Vegas coming up as well. So stay in the lookout in United Latinas events where you'll be able to just be in the know-how of everything. And then sign up, right? Become a member. This is a community of support, a community to build with each other. So be a part of this community and have a wonderful, wonderful year ahead. Cristina, as always, thank you so much for
Thank
being with us.
you.
And we have a lot of great things coming up this year together as well.
I'm
So
excited.
just looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for the invite, Liana, and for creating this space for us that is very, very necessary. So have a great 2024, everybody. And remember, show yourself some grace. You're human.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year, and see you sometime next week or during the month in one of our other events. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.